For every day we wait or point fingers or drag our feet, more Americans will lose their jobs. More families.
President-elect Barack Obama taking office 9 days from now, but he says Congress needs to act now on his economic stimulus package. We are now joined by New York's Republican Congressman Peter King of Long Island. Congressman King, good to have you here with us this morning. We heard from your fellow congressman, Charlie Rangel, just a moment ago. He says that Congress can reach bipartisan support on this agreement by President's Day. Do you think that's possible?
I think it's possible. We have to get more details on it. Ironically, I think most of the intense opposition that President-elect Obama is getting right now is from Democrats who feel that it's too slanted toward tax cuts and there's not enough spending as far as creating jobs and new jobs. I'm not exactly certain what their criticism is, other than they feel that there should be more money spent on social programs and less on tax cuts. In my own case, I think, for instance, in New York, we definitely need money as far as offsetting Medicaid costs. Medicaid costs are phenomenally high in New York. We also need infrastructure improvements. I'm actually seeking to get money to revamp the PATH tunnels going to the World Trade Center site and also to Penn Station. But a lot of this is still out there. It hasn't been actually put on paper yet. But I do think there's a consensus to get something done. So
is President's Day, though, a realistic time frame for this?
It depends on how soon they can get it on paper and to us so the debate can begin. Because right now we're debating concepts. Roughly it's 40% tax cuts and 60% spending, some on infrastructure, some on extending unemployment compensation, areas such as that. So I would say right now, since the Democrats control the Congress and the presidency, the burden is on them to get something so the debate can begin, because once the debate begins, then the negotiations can begin. And both sides realize we have to get it resolved.
Do you have any concerns about the huge amount of money and the debt that this implies?
I do. Now, if it's done in what we end up believing is the right way, you know, the hope is that the money we spend now is going to bring in more money later on by getting jobs for people, by rebuilding the infrastructure, by creating a situation where the economy can come back very strong, and the revenues from that will offset what we spend now. But that's why it has to be done right, or as close to right as we can make it. And right now, to me, it's still too general for me to give a commitment one way or the other than we have to start addressing it very seriously, because we are in dire economic straits.
Okay. Congressman King, I asked Charlie Rangel about TARP, the $700 billion bailout package. $350 billion of that has been spent or handed out. Do you know how that money has been spent?
Now, part of it is, the money obviously went to investment banks. It went into the financial community. And part of their argument is, well, if they tell exactly how they spend it, then they're tipping off their competitors. Well, they have to give us a much better understanding, a much better detailing of where and how the money was spent, obviously.
And do you think that the second half of that $350 billion is going to pass?
Right now, I would say it'll pass in some form, but with much stricter regulations than we had the last time. Remember, when this came up the last time, we were told, and probably rightly so, within days of total economic collapse. So I think that $350 billion served some purpose. Whether or not it lived up to the $350 billion cost price tag is another question.
Okay. Congressman, you've said that you're going to run for Senate. Not officially, but you are certainly considering it. What is your thought on that at this point, particularly with Governor Patterson at this point trying to determine who's going to fill Senator Clinton's Senate seat? What do you think, and what are your thought processes on making that decision of whether or not you're going to run?
Yeah, I have said I'm very seriously considering running. I've set up a website, peteking.us. I'm soliciting opinions from people and thoughts. I'm traveling around. I'm talking to leaders. And right now, it looks very likely that I will run. I've seen some recent polling this week that come out, which have it anywhere from a 2-point race to an 18-point race. With me and Caroline Kennedy, average it out, it's about a 10-point race. She has very high negatives, and I think that is a race that I can win because I have much more in common with the average New Yorker than Caroline Kennedy has, since she has virtually no experience either in the private sector or in government or indeed in any real noteworthy issues, and she
So it
hasn't
sounds
even
like
voted half the time.
It sounds like she would be your preferred opponent.
Well, I've been focusing on her because she was almost coronated about a month ago, so I've been focusing on her. But again, we'll see what happens if it's someone else, and it's up to the governor. I guess we'll find out probably within the week
Well,
who he's going to pick.
Do you think the governor's made up his mind?
David Patterson's a good friend, but I wouldn't go near him on this. I would think, put it this way, I'm glad I'm not in his position.
Okay. The cost of running for Senate, you know that it is enormous, $30 million. Can you raise that kind of money?
I certainly hope so, and that's what I'm trying to do right now, get an estimate on that. Again, it depends, I think, on who the opponent is, and I would probably take me 30 to 60 days to know for certain if it's possible to raise that kind of money. That is the main target right now. I have over $1 million in my campaign now, which was left over from previous campaigns, which I can use toward the Senate campaign. That would get me about 6 weeks of campaigning from that. So I have to raise, again, another $30 to $40 million. It's big money, but again, in a big state like New York, if people take the race seriously, you can raise the money. And that's the idea, is to get people to focus on the race, to see if they're going to focus on it or just treat it as another Democrat-Republican race. If it's just a standard Democrat-Republican race, Democrats win because they have 2 million more voters than we do. It'd be my job to highlight this race and to show why so much is at stake and why, with my experience, I'm the one who is best qualified to do the job.
Mayor Bloomberg, now an independent, is reportedly courting Republicans to get back on the Republican ticket for his re-election. What do you think? Would you welcome him back?
I think Mayor Bloomberg has been an outstanding mayor. Obviously, I wish he hadn't left the Republican Party. But again, I'm not in New York City, but I would strongly, I would hope very much that Mayor Bloomberg would get the Republican nomination if he seeks it and be re-elected as mayor. Again, there could be any number of individual issues that I would disagree or might disagree with the mayor on, but overall, he has been an outstanding mayor for the city of New York. And during these tough fiscal times, and so important to have someone there like him. And also, in tough fiscal times, there's always the real danger that crime could come back. And he's been very, very strong mayor as far as crime. He and Ray Kelly have just been phenomenal. And I don't want the city to go back to the days they were prior to Mike Bloomberg and Rudy Giuliani.
So you would welcome him back into the fold?
I would. Again, he's a friend, even though right now it seems like he's supporting Caroline Kennedy. But in spite of that, I think he's been a great mayor. And he's a very good friend. Okay.
Congressman King, always a pleasure. Good to talk to you. And
thank you, Diana.
We'll talk to you again in person at some point. Thanks so much, Congressman.
Thank you.
When we come back, we're going to talk to our reporter on the front lines of the